welcome. I'm very grateful for all these guys giving their time today to come and share their stories, their thoughts, all this kind of thing about their careers to date. I think we came up with the idea because actually someone said to me earlier on, they said, thank you for inviting me. I've not been invited to one of these events before. And I was like, it's the first time we've had it. So hasn't been before. So we just thought it was really good. We've both been, I started teaching here in 2001. I think, Mark, you were shortly after 2003, 2004? Something like that. Yeah. And we thought it was about time we kind of got some of you back to have a chat and see what you're all up to. I think it's really important in today's environment that we kind of work out what a career is for not only a guitarist but a musician and people generally, you know, with what they're going on to do. And I don't think now there's no such thing as a kind of stable job almost. Doesn't matter what job you go on to do. And certainly as a kind of freelance musician, you're in the same sort of boat as lots of other kind of careers. And the kind of buzzwords that are sort of going around, certainly as for musicians, but also through general business, is kind of a more portfolio career. It's not just we're just producing soloists. Those days are long, long gone. They certainly were around a little bit when we were studying, you know, that kind of like you go to music college and you're going to do this, you're going to do that, X, Y, and Z. Those days are kind of gone. And also this whole thing in business of transferable skills. So they're the non-guitar skills that you're kind of not necessarily learning at college, but the transferable skills that you need to actually have a job in any kind of music life are really important. So those things that we're going to kind of touch upon. One thing that came out of this morning, we had a little rehearsal of a piece we're going to play all together later on in the end of the concert. And it seemed like already the most important thing for any musician is when they're going to eat. You know, and whether there's going to be kind of enough sandwiches. Because I was saying about, you know, maybe they wanted to stay in the space and rehearse a little bit if they wanted for the concert later on. And someone was quite concerned that if they did, there might not be any sandwiches left. So, you know, it's clearly very, very important that happens. So, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Mark Ashford. This is Mark Eden. We're both guitar tutors here at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. I should go round just individually. If we could start with Russell right at that end and just work our way round. If you just want to maybe introduce yourself, tell us the years that you were studying here and what you're doing now.
So I'm Russell. I studied from 1995 till 2001. I'm now living in Germany, where I teach and play concerts and
general stuff. Great. Yeah. And we'll certainly come on back to you, Russell, with lots of questions about your life in Germany, you know, as a musician, which may be very, very different from a UK musician. Adam.
Yes, I'm Adam. I was here at Conservatoire in the old building, 2004 to 2008, and I'm currently deputy head of the music service in Birmingham, so kind of teaching in primary schools, secondary schools, and organising the lessons for children within the Birmingham area.
I'm Gareth. I was here from 2001 till 2005. I then went to study in London for a couple of years, did a master's at Royal College, and since then I've been kind of a jack of all trades really, session musician, playing in a lot of bands, playing mainly electric and acoustic guitar now, but still call upon everything I learned on the classical guitar to help me out sometimes, you know, because that's the ultimate discipline still. But yeah, that's me.
Hello, I'm Georgina, and I studied between 2014 and 2018. And then I did my master's in Wales. Before that, I did a little bit of arts admin stuff, and I've sort of come back to playing the guitar a bit more. And I teach and perform and work for live music now and stuff like that. But I don't know whether that's something.
Absolutely, we're going to touch upon that as well. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm Will. I studied here 2017 to 2021, and I now run a company that I founded 2 years ago called Quiet Note, which is all about helping people take care of their mental health and well-being by teaching mindfulness all through music.
My name is Daniel. I studied here between 2004 and 2010. I now work as director of music at a secondary school, and I also do my own private teaching as well on top of that.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I studied in 2007 to 2011. I've got kind of what you'd guess say a portfolio career of do lots of different things. I can do 3 or 4 different jobs in one day sometimes, it feels like. I've got a folk trio. I mostly play acoustic guitar these days, and fingerstyle. I've got a folk trio, a singer-songwriter, sort of blues duo, a wedding duo, a wedding band, and I do music in hospitals, playing on wards to patients, and do a lot of composition work, music for film and TV, and libraries and things like that. And I've done a lot of theatre work as well, sometimes just being a musician, but most recently composing music and being like acting musician as well.
Hi there, I'm Matt. I studied at Birmingham from 2006 to 2010. I currently work as a private guitar and piano teacher in Liverpool and as a visiting music teacher at Liverpool Hope University. And before that, I worked in a number of different performing spheres, theatre, cruise ships, bands of different stripe. So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, hi everyone, my name's Ron. And I studied at the Conservatoire from 1997 to 2001. I then went on to do a postgraduate certificate of education and then went into teaching. And I taught for 17 years a few miles down the road in Solihull, which was a lot of fun. Excuse me. I've recently retired from the music service, but I still do quite a lot of playing, most of it involved in community projects near where I live, which is in Tamworth.
Hi, I'm Sue. I studied here between 2016 and 2019 on the Masters programme, which was a great delight and surprise to be able to do that. I've been a self-employed acupuncturist for 30 years, so I'm now balancing 2 extremely sensible careers. I was a community musician, led a community choir, lots of ensembles, duos, and do some teaching now.
Hi, I'm Liz. I finally left the Conservatoire in 2006, having started in 1999. I've stayed in Birmingham. I teach in 3 private schools. I've had quite a varied career. I've done arts admin, worked for the Royal Shakespeare Company, really love chamber music, and really have a passion for teaching as well.
Hi, I'm Tim. I was here between 1998 and 2002. I think I'm a bit of the black sheep of the alumni family because my work has not involved music at all now. I realised I was teaching for about a year afterwards, realised it wasn't for me. Did a variety of different jobs. I worked in bars for 10 years, then rediscovered what I wanted to do, did a PhD in genetics, and I now work as a machine learning engineer in the biomedical sector. So I think that's all about the transferable skills.
Absolutely, that's what you hear.
Yeah, kind of. So it's got changed lifestyle. I use nail clippers on both hands now.
Revolutionised your life.
Yes, so happy to talk about how I've moved into that with anyone.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I was here from 96 to 2002. Although I beat you 2 because I started teaching here in 99. I'm the guitar tutor for the junior departments on a Saturday here at the Conservatoire. Done various bits of orchestral guitar, things with the CVSO and the RSC. I teach at various independent schools in Birmingham. But the main thing that's sort of taken over my life over the last 9 years or so has been the director of the West Dean Guitar Festival.
Thank you very much, thank you. And as kind of Tim points out there, you'll see in the programme as well, there's a few biographies of people, there are a few people that couldn't make it today that were supposed to be. And I found the people that weren't involved in music anymore were saying, well, I can't give anything, but I think it's really important. There's one particular person, Hannah, who's on there, Biogs there, who works as a media person for the CBSO Centre. I think it's really important that it's not just we're going down the route of you're going to be a musician, you're going to kind of play the guitar, but what other kind of skills are you learning, you know, whilst you're here? And that's what we will come on to as well. Some people as well wanted to be here today and couldn't make it along. Had other work that they were doing today. So we are going to run a few online videos as well at some point when we get round to it, and kind of merge them together into one sort of big video. Certainly people that are abroad and at far-flung reaches of the world, we'll do online interviews with them. So you get a different perspective. Certainly there's quite a few composers actually that have they're just doing composition now to a very, very high level, and great careers. So really interesting to kind of talk to them at some point as well. So I just thought from that perspective, we would just go one step further, and certainly for our students that are here at the moment, I thought it'd be interesting just to say why the people that went on to do postgraduate courses, what led you into doing that? And it might be interesting for some of our guys to sort of hear, you know, we're thinking, what, should I do a postgrad? Should I not do it? Can I afford it? You know, I've got enough debt as it is. What was it that led you on to do postgraduate studies? We've got Russell and Georgina and Gareth and Liz as well. Oh, and Andrew, yeah, and Ron as well. So quite a few of you went on to do postgraduate, and not just here. You then, you know, you decided, okay, I've had enough here. I'm going. Not that I'm saying that you should have stayed here or anything, but it's like, yeah. Like, but it's interesting to kind of know, you know, what led you to go, okay, I've been here 4 years, I then want to kind of take that somewhere else. I mean, Gareth, you went on to the RCM, you said, after here. So what led you to that? And what did a postgraduate study give you that we couldn't? No. What gave you, what was it that you know, was great about that?
I think when I came here, I felt like I was playing catch-up quite a lot, you know, because I was kind of, I've always played all guitars, you know, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, classical guitar, never really studied as intensely as I needed to when I was here. And I think because of that, when I got to a certain level at undergraduate, I still didn't think I was good enough, you know, I still didn't think I was quite there. And I thought, for me, going down to London, and I sort of experienced that. I mean, I remember going down to Bolivar Hall with Liz a couple of times and playing in those concerts where it was like intercollegiate, so you'd see the guys from the Royal Academy, the Royal College, the Guildhall, and the standard was, I mean, it was quite a phenomenal crop in my generation as well. You know, you had Johannes Muller and Miloš, and all these great guys, all these amazing players, Jorgen Skogmar, Stanislav Barchukov, and it just kind of blew me away. I was like, well, I can't play like that, you know, but I'm going to. I'm going to try, you know. So I think it was a bit of that as well. I think I just didn't feel like I was quite finished.
Yeah.
And I thought that environment in London would probably do me the world of good, because everyone there was at least as good and mostly better than I was, which was for me really a good thing for me personally.
So it gave you that kick almost.
Yeah,
to kind of
I think so. I think that's mainly what it was for me. Yeah.
Was it similar for you, Russell? Because you went abroad as well. So.
Yeah, and it was, I don't know, the postgraduate here that I did, again, it was almost like, okay, after the 4, it was like it had just started.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, that was just finishing the bachelor was like just the start really. So then I did.
In terms of like musically or technique wise, or in terms of career?
Music,
or?
Technically, it was like, okay, it's not, all right, now I've got a bachelor, I'm finished. And it's like, okay, there's much more. There's much more to do. So that was, then I did 2 years part-time with postgraduate diploma, and then that was enough then, and it was that time, then I was kind of going around to a lot of festivals and doing competitions, and then ended up going to Koblenz in 2004 to study there with Hubert Keppelner, and they got like a postgraduate soloist diploma thing on the Guitar Academy. So I did that for 2 years, and then ended up staying
absolutely
doing that. And then, funnily enough, that was quite, I surprised myself. I did a master's then.
You still seem quite surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think when was COVID? I'm trying to think when it started. 2018.
Right.
So
Okay.
I went back to study 2000
Oh wow!
as an
I
old
didn't know
man.
that.
I went
Yeah.
back, which was quite. It was a new at the Hawkesbury Mines. They'd not had guitar for a while, so it was a new kind of cooperation study, and it was okay. I had to think about it first for a while. Is this like a backward step aside?
Sure.
But it was amazing actually.
So you really enjoyed that gap and then going back to study.
It was completely different because it was like I was now that horrible, boring, mature student. It was like serious and let's do this. So it was great. And so it was like, and I got to again work with a lot of young people again, and it was like kind of did a unbelievable amount of chamber music in the time. It was like kind of one of the things that was, if I'm going to do it, then I'm not just I want to do it properly. It's like kind of
that's fascinating.
And can I do what I want? And it's like do what you want. So it's like okay, here singers, string quartets.
It's all for you.
Well, it's like
which would have been difficult to do outside of institution, I guess, or harder. Or there's money involved, obviously, in employing other musicians or whatever.
There was different things that I'd done before. I mean, in where I live in Koblenz, we've got like a city orchestra there as well. So I've got over the years contacts with different players. I've got a duo with cello from the orchestra and done different things with string quartets from there. So but it was, but I really enjoyed it. It was like kind of. It was completely different from doing it when you're like 18.
But it's coming at with more mature eyes, isn't it?
Yeah, completely.
It's interesting because we've got Ron and Sue who are both mature students. Was it a similar thing for you, or what was your experience?
I was never boring.
But I've become boring now.
And I'm sure Sue wasn't either. Sorry, your question.
Well, was it a similar experience, kind of having that gap and coming back into education? I mean, I know for Sue it was quite a scary thing for you
to
do, but
completely. I hadn't done a music degree. It was completely batty. It was the best thing I've ever done. It's just great. The students were fantastic. The opportunities were there, and frankly, it's like if that's your opportunity, you just do it, don't you? So I did the 3-year part-time programme so I could work as well. And it was just fantastic. Yeah, you gain such a lot, and you keep the connections afterwards. So.
Do you think your time here when you did your masters? Do you think you when you were here you were studying in a more intense way because you knew that you'd have to make sort of big decisions in order to come along at that stage?
Absolutely. There was not a second to spare, and because of working like time management, all of that, but it was like make the most of every opportunity. I used to get in here the second the doors opened. I was in that practice room. It was nonsense really, but it was just great, and it really taught me how much you can do if you put your mind to it and you're utterly focused. And it was a great privilege, in my stage of life to do it.
Gareth, you went out to Italy, didn't you?
No, Czech Republic.
Czech Republic, sorry, with Pavel.
Yeah.
So what was that? So that was after you'd been at the Royal College.
After the Royal College, yeah. So that was about.
You just wanted to be a student forever and ever.
Yeah, and I just ran out of places to go. But I'm back here now. But, I mean that was a great experience as well, and it was kind of tricky to get all the lessons in because he was becoming a bit of a star at that point, and he'd be having a lesson and then Czech television would turn up and start filming him, and I'd be like, oh, I'm on Czech television, and no, I'm not, they're filming him. But that was really good. I mean, I learned a lot from him, like mainly in how to be yourself through the music, not to be afraid of expressing yourself, and because I suppose when you're a student you're so worried about when you go around the guitar festivals and the competitions, you're so worried about hitting the wrong note and all that kind of thing, It's kind of awful in a way. You kind of forget, actually, I love music, I don't care if I hit a wrong note. What does it matter? As long as I'm enjoying it and it's fun and I'm saying something with it and I'm communicating something. And I think that's something I got from him. Like it made me feel quite at ease to just express things, tell it like I think it is, basically. I think that's the main thing I got from Pavel Stidle.
Great. Georgina, I know that you took a bit of time out, didn't you, between here and going to the Royal College, Royal Welsh. What made you decide you want to go back into education? Was it a couple of years or just a year?
It was 2 years.
2 years.
So I went and worked for an artist management company for just over a year, because I think the reason why I didn't go straight on to do a master's was because I didn't feel like I really wanted to be a soloist. That wasn't really my thing. You know, I enjoyed it, but I was quite nervous about it, I guess. And so I didn't really see it as an option at that point in time, and that I just wanted a little bit of time away from studying. So I went and did something, I suppose, although it's related, but completely different, like without the guitar. And then I just really, really missed playing the guitar, and I realised how much it meant to me, and you know, all of that stuff. So that's why I then I made the decision I did my master's, because I sort of felt like I'd had 2 years, although I'd sort of played, just not enough, I guess. So I sort of that was my way of getting back in and being able to play with really good players again and learn again, if you know what I mean.
And so was it a similar experience to Russell and Gareth and actually Sue and Ron, in that you came with it with a different outlook than you did your undergrad? I mean, you totally
different. And actually, I think that I went into the masters with a very different attitude to what if I had just gone straight there, and I sort of took every opportunity I could. And I was really at this point I realised I was really into community music stuff as well. So I just tried to meet as many people and get involved in as many things as possible. So yeah, it was brilliant.
Great. And Liz and Andrew, you studied here as your postgrad. So I mean, how was that for you? I mean, what again, similar kind of question. What led you at year 4 to go, I need another couple of years? Liz, I know you did, what did they call it? An external?
An external, yeah.
For a year, didn't you? And then did...
Yeah, so I could keep engaged with basically having lessons and the ensemble, because I really loved playing with the other guitarists. I very much enjoyed my undergrad as a student, so to speak, so I felt like some of those years...
You sounded a bit trepidation in your voice then.
Well, yeah, I enjoyed student life, put it that way.
Okay, yeah,
and
good.
So I felt like my playing, I'd only really in my 4th year just begun, is how I felt.
Okay, which is similar to Russell kind of thing.
Yeah, and settled. And then wasn't quite ready in the external year to move on to postgrad, didn't know what I wanted to do. And at that point I started teaching as well for the music service. Yeah. And I just realised I was still really hungry to learn. Yeah. Loved the environment, so then applied for the postgrads, and then that's when I started learning.
Okay. Yeah, interesting that you, because there's a lot of groundwork to do, isn't there? You know, in learning, in going from, you know, say as an 18-year-old doing grade 8. That's also well and good, but that's not the starting point, is it either? You know, and interesting you're saying 3rd and 4th years is your starting point.
And
almost.
With singers, often they don't even apply. You know, their voice is mature, and I feel like with my technique, it was really. It's a bit later on when I started to get to grips of it, and it started to work for me, so yeah. That's
great. And Andrew, how was your experience, or what, again, same question, what led you to go? Is it a similar story to Liz or to Russell or to...
Yeah, I would say there was definitely still, you felt there was more to learn before you fully started your career. Although I was in that sort of fortunate situation that I started to teach during my 4th year, and I had lots of other concerts and other things very much based here. So from my point of view, there was definitely no need to move to London or anywhere else, because I'd got so much work going on pretty much straight away. So it was a case of, I wanted to learn more, but I still wanted to start my career. So doing the part-time MA
so you would,
really was great, because I could just sort of still learn, but actually have a career.
So was that over 3 years as well?
2 years.
Oh, 2 years.
Yeah, we had 2 years then.
Ah, because that changed.
So it was intensive.
Well, there used to be the other option of doing a 1-year intense, and it literally was so intense, unbelievable. I think most colleges have stopped doing that. I think, you know, the London College as well, and we've certainly stopped that here now as well.
It was just about manageable, but obviously trying to sort of balance the work / practice and study time was it was a tricky, busy time, but fun.
Absolutely.
Mark,
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Could I just say that I really felt that
do a postgraduate certificate of education, which is what I did,
Yes.
was really going to open my opportunities as far as getting a job in teaching.
Yeah.
And that is actually what proved to be the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that I applied to 3 music services, all of which offered me work ultimately.
And do you think that because of the PGCE? Because
I
of that?
believe it was
Yeah.
because of
There's a few of you. Adam, you got a PGCE, and Dan, and Matt, you've got, and no, you. Okay. But you did the similar kind of thing.
Yeah, so I finished in 2008, got a job straight away with the music service, but then was able to do a PGCE kind of in primary education. That was 2 years part-time, which kind of gives you qualified teacher status, which obviously is a postgraduate certificate education, so it's kind of at that level 7, I think it is. But obviously that was kind of great in terms of, as Ron kind of said, it was specific for a specific teaching role. So it opened kind of many doors, and lots of people from the course kind of got jobs kind of in schools, but also some of them were taught internationally, and they could like take that qualification to wherever they wanted to, really.
Yeah. And similar for you, Dan, when you did.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I remember being 16, working in the pub, and someone said to me, "Get a PGCE because it's like a passport."
Okay.
And I'm moving to Marbella next month.
Yes,
so,
it's
one of them things, and I think because PCU they had such an attractive bursary going with it at the same time, I thought, well, I'm still studying, I'll go straight into that, and then did kind of slide straight into secondary education after that.
Okay.
But it's allowed me quite a few opportunities.
So good string to your bow,
yeah.
or to your guitar. So that's great. That's great. So I'd like to kind of go on a little bit, and so the next kind of stage, really. So into a kind of performing career. Did you find your own old brochure, Mark? I couldn't find mine. It's funny. We're both chatting about when we started in the profession, so mid-90s or whatever, and how we first got gigs and how to get gigs. And we had, I think yours was as bad as mine, probably. I created the, obviously online. There was no kind of online. There was a little bit, but it was all dial-up. You had to wait about a million. All day for it to get online. But so there was none of that really. So we had these brochures that were, mine was anyway, it just had a picture of me on the front, maybe a quote or something, and then you put little inlays in there of A5 pieces of paper. I vividly remember it. Bits of A5 paper with like a concert program, your biog, I don't know, quotes or something like that, other little thing. And we both studied at the Royal Academy of Music, and there was a lady, Janet Snowman, still remember her name, used to help out with all that kind of thing, for the promotion side of things. And literally you'd send it to music societies, music festivals, all the rest of it. And then it was a question of getting on the phone, phoning these organisations and see whether you got gigs. You'd do competitions because it would be great for your CV and everything, and you started to kind of build up that kind of thing of doing work. And I guess similar things.
This is just to put this into perspective, that this lady Janet at the academy who was helping us. I mean, she had a computer. Now, no one had computers at this stage. I'm just showing you how
in 1952.
Mark and I are, and the fact that we didn't even have mobile phones.
We had long hair at that point as well.
Yeah, we had long hair. So, I mean, you wouldn't even recognise me from my original, artist.
Oh, they'd have been hilarious, but
But
maybe I'll find them and put them online if we put this online.
We'll put them up. But that was, it was very, very interesting. We'd also buy something like the British Music Yearbook, and then literally copy by hand like the addresses of music societies and festivals, literally post it.
Send out thousands.
Absolutely, yes. Amazingly intensive bit of work, but
And most of it went in the bin, didn't it? From the music societies and everything.
Or you get really hilarious letters, handwritten letters back saying, "We do not have guitars at our music society, only piano trios." And then you'd be like, "Wow," kind of cross that one off the list, So.
And what makes you think they had that accent though?
Oh, sorry.
That's why we did chamber music.
Pardon?
That's why we did chamber music.
Okay, right.
I did a guitar and flute duo for many years. I did Live Music Now stuff, and then obviously just other music societies, etc. And there were guitar societies obviously love guitar. Music societies generally love orchestral instruments and piano and voice. So to get a gig with them, it was very much a case of to do guitar with something else. Then you'd sort of take the flute or the violin in first, and then you'd sneak the guitar in behind them so nobody saw until you got onto stage, and then they were pleasantly surprised that the guitar could actually make a nice sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably sort of maybe true. I mean, there was another element that, you know, I play in the guitar duo still and stuff with the quartet and stuff. But you know, sometimes chamber music is a way, but they would sometimes look at the guitar as they'd only want a solo guitar because that was like their one-time concert with the guitar, and they just wanted to hear the great guitar pieces. And so, you know, sometimes, you know, the idea of having two guitars would be, you know, they would look at it like, why would we do that? We'd have to pay for two guitarists, you know, that would be ridiculous. So,
but I'm interested in hearing people how they first got their first gigs and things. Was it a question of phoning people? Any experiences of, you know, maybe
Matt and Jamie, because you guys didn't do a postgrad like hero thing, and I'm just interested to see how you kind of felt like you were either you had, you know, finished here after your graduate course and then just like decided bachelor's and then, you know, decided that you launch off, you knew where you were going or where you were heading after that.
Yeah. I don't know, I didn't feel like I had much of a, well, I didn't know what I was going to do at all when I finished here. But I'd always gigged quite a lot, a bit like Gareth was saying. I'd always done like different types of guitar before coming here.
Yes.
When I was in my first year, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a branch of Revolution Bar on Broad Street.
Yes.
I just went there in the first term and said, can I have a gig if I put together like a 4-piece jazz band? And they gave it to me. I didn't, you know, we had it for like a few months or whatever. I always think
that's why you were so tired in my lessons.
Yeah. I think being cheeky is really like a, you know, a very necessary skill. And then, you know, I was in a couple of bands and things while I was here and did a bit of playing. But in terms of getting work, a year after I finished college, I applied to an agency to do cruise ship work and did that for sort of 3.5 years. So you're just working all the time then. You're not getting your own gigs, you're just there.
Were you playing concerts or were you part of the sort of the onboard band?
I was part of the onboard band.
You were music director, weren't you?
And then music director, for a couple of years. Which was kind of quite nice because I was in a band of like kind of sidemen for a couple of contracts, and then met some musicians I got on really well with, and we sort of, you know, negotiated our own contracts and went places as our own band, which was fun. And then, but then, you know, that's the kind of thing. It's a bit of a young person's game, the cruise ship thing, and eventually, you know, you want a bit of stability, or I think anyway. And so I moved back to Liverpool, and again, it's back to not turning stuff down and just being keen to say yes to opportunities. So one of the things that happened is I did a classical guitar recital for in a local church. And somebody came along and said, I run a band that does. I think I had a couple of items in the program that were a bit unusual. I think I maybe played one or two of those Balkan miniatures by Dusan Bogdanovic, and someone came up and said, I run a local band that does klezmer music. Would you be interested in playing mandolin with us? So I said, yeah, why not? You know, and tried to learn the mandolin and did quite a lot of playing with that over the years. I'd say the other big thing is just be easy to get on with. Like I can't overstate the amount of gigging work in particular that I've got by just people saying, oh, I heard about this job, so I recommended you for it. You know, I think that's really good point. Really important thing to build connections and, you know, find people you get on with and feel the same way about music with.
Yes.
That's so important,
That
unbelievably important
People
too.
will really appreciate it if they see you as a nice guy or a nice girl.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that you're going to show up and do a good job, is that you're easy to get on with, and you're not going to cause your rider isn't kind of like 10 pages long of what you require backstage or whatever, and that you're just going to get on and do it and do a good job and be there because you want to be there, and not like clock watching. Okay, right, rehearsal's end now, I've got to go, and you know, just be an engaged kind of musician. Any other stories about like how weird concerts that have come about? Like you say, Matt, a little bit. You did one concert that kind of led to another, and you didn't really expect it. I mean, it's happened to me loads. I'm sure it's happened to you, Mark, over the years. You're doing something, you're like, oh, do I really want to do that? And then you do it, and something else comes from it, and you're just like, okay, that leads on to that, and that leads on to that. You know, anyone got any kind of strange stories about that kind of thing?
When I graduated 2 years ago, I play with a harpist as well as a harp and guitar duo. and this was just coming out of COVID, and so obviously gigs were really slowly coming back. But I think that idea of being really proactive and actually going to churches and say, look, we've got this recital, we'll split the profits with you 50-50, and we just went round, so back to where I'm from in Lincoln, down to where Emmy's from in Kent, and we did that to about, 5 or 6 different venues, and they all said yes, because we were all in the same boat at that time, and it was just this idea of being really proactive with going and getting the gigs for ourselves.
Yeah. So being proactive and also a yes man, really. So someone that, yes, I'll do that, and then you put down the phone and go, oh no, I've agreed to do something.
Well, it's what you always used to say to me, Mark. It's like you don't graduate and then someone gives you a silver platter with all these gigs.
No.
You've kind of got to go out and create them and make them, and talk to festival directors and just be prepared for a lot of no's and a couple of yeses. Yeah.
And again, a bit coming back to what Russell was saying is that he's, he learnt more or started to learn more of the 4th year postgrad or wherever. It's when you leave, it's just like, okay, you're going to learn on how to kind of get gigs. You're not taught how to, and there's no silver bullet, to any of that. You've just got to go, out there and find it. Anywhere else? Any kind of interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I had a bit of a mixed experience with it. Actually, I got a slight silver platter. Actually.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Because Matt obviously finished the year before me, and you had your band going, your folk band. And you had a bunch of teaching that you built up as well, and then you left to do the cruise ship and said,
oh, you just went in, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Jamie, do you want to learn all these tunes from a band and step in for me? And do you want all this teaching as well? And I was like, yeah, okay. So,
but it's still a massive. The great thing is that even though that was handed to you on some ways, but to sometimes the put yourself on the line to actually just jump into Matt's shoes there is actually still quite a big ask. I think it's putting yourself on the line is that thing.
It was like, I've got to register self-employed straight away as soon as I finish college, because I'm still teaching in September now, and then with the band unfortunately you missed out. It was like some really good gigs straight away. We did Symphony Hall, we did Moseley Folk Festival, and it was like
Matt said at the beginning you still owe him some money.
Some commission.
Some commission, yeah.
But then after sort of that initial bit where I sort of just stepped in, we did a lot of that old school writing to places, and I remember that our best in that band, which was still going, the band, but neither of us are in it now. It's called Bonfire Radicals. With our best summer festivals, we spent like a whole day, a band day, looking through the back of folk magazines at all the festivals, writing all the addresses on envelopes, posting a demo CD and leaflets and whatever, and then we took, and it was 300, we wrote off to 300, and then we each took 30 to follow up on the phone calls and emails afterwards. And after all that, we ended up with 30 festivals or something. But I mean, that's 300.
Well, 10% is a great return. A business would be very happy with a 10% return.
So it was a lot of legwork, but it was it was a lot of fun. I don't know whether I've not written to festivals and stuff like that in that same way anymore, because now it's more like we wish your links. Post your links for you.
Well, I was going to ask how you think it's gone on from there, from those days. So where are we now? I mean, where are we now in terms of getting gigs? I mean, is it all social media? You're talking to granddads here, So what is it? What happens now?
I think it's the connections you make with people. So you guys, sit next to each other. You might have a job, as you say. I'm leaving. I've got a teaching job. And then you're like, oh yeah, this person's really reliable. Would you like this job? All the teaching jobs I got, I didn't apply for. It was my friend recommended me, and it was like, no.
Well, Matt wouldn't have given the job to Jamie if he didn't think James going to do a good job. You don't want to pass it on to someone that you think, they're going to be, they're not going to show up. They're not going to,
A concerto from Adam. He recommended me.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
So it really is who you know, not what you know.
Well, it's how you are with people, how you are with people, and what your reputation. You think you're playing at a background gig and no one's listening and it's not important. That's how I got in at the RSC. It was a background gig in their cafeteria, and then the fixer came up and said, "Oh, would you?" Not straight away, but he'd got my information and then contacted me. Could be the years later on. So you just never know, really. But it is very different these days, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say actually being very proactive and actually sort of always being, I suppose, always trying to say yes to a lot of things when you're first starting out. The opportunity arose for me to be able to do various bits of teaching, and therefore once you start doing that, you get one role, you can then pursue other jobs, and if you have hopefully a good position somewhere, the likelihood is that if you build up a good reputation doing that one, when you're applying for other jobs, they'll think, oh, if you teach there, you must be pretty good, then they were more likely to offer you a job somewhere else as well. Concerts, yeah, I can remember, not emailing, writing, as you say, and then emailing lots of places to get gigs. And it's normally a bit of a snowball. You start off very small, and it only works that you can get the next concert because you've done the concert elsewhere, and you can then tell people, well, I played there, and then again they think, oh well, if they let you in the door, we could probably let you in the door as well, and it just sort of builds up from there.
And you have to take a hell of a lot of rejections as well. You've got to be prepared to you get all those. So you said 30 out of 300, but as I said, businesses would be very happy with that. Really, it's more like kind of 5% or 3%. I think they would be happy with rather than 10%.
There's quite a bit of luck involved as well.
There's a bit of luck, but it's just fun. Like you're saying, getting on with people, but just putting yourself out there and just not expecting somebody to call you. Or if you're going to contact people, you've got to follow up, because they just never follow up. They never contact you. Yeah. But just putting yourself out there is like, I remember my wife is a musician as well. She plays clarinet, so we played together and stuff. And we lived in Cardiff for a year. And it was the only time I've ever busked on the street. And I think we played one tune, and a guy came up and said, "Do you want to be on BBC Radio?" All right, yeah. For weeks on end, we were like the house band on like a comedy show on BBC Radio Wales. Brilliant. And just from busking one tune on the street. And I was thinking, God, stuff happens in Cardiff. But in a way, like.
Do you think playing? You play steel string and you play classical as well. The same with Matt, and Gareth, you play electric and stuff. And do you think being more, being able to play all those different instruments and the mandolin as well? Do you think that's really also helped generate much more work and being more flexible and open?
Yes, definitely. I would say so. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I work in 3 schools, and in one of them I'm a classical guitar teacher, in another one an everything, all guitar teacher basically, and then work at Wellington College as well, where I teach acoustic and electric guitar. So I would say certainly in terms of teaching and playing as well, because I've done a lot of session work, and I found that I was saying to Liz earlier, like once you get in that kind of world, if they realise that you can play electric guitar pretty well and acoustic guitar pretty well and classical guitar and make a decent sound on all of them, then they're not going to book 3 different guys. They'll just book one person who'll do it all, and it's everybody's happy then, you see. So I think it's definitely, I suppose it all depends on what you're going to do with it, but for me personally, I think it's definitely helped in all aspects of my music, being able to do all of them, because I still do, and to me now it's like being here and all the stuff I've learned outside of here, it's almost like it's just one thing to me now. It's all just kind of been thrown in a pot, mixed up, and that's me, basically. That's how I play the guitar. And there's all those elements in there: classical guitar, rock guitar, folk guitar, country, western guitar, whatever it might be. So I've learned a bit of all of it. Probably don't do any of them brilliantly, but I can do all of them fairly well. And that's fine. That's
pretty good.
Suits me.
In the theatre, you get paid more as well, so you can double up on parts. So you're like, I can play mandolin, or I can play bouzouki and all of this, and you're like, okay, let's learn this for the show.
That's This is like my old guitar teacher at the academy, Colin Downs, who was basically sort of renowned as an amazing sight reader, and you know, he did play like other instruments as well. And he did tell me once he got this enormous paycheck for doing this thing where he just played like 3 notes on about 7 instruments.
Yeah, that's it.
And it just kind of like, it just amounted to this enormous amount of payoff at the end, you know. He just had to sort of keep moving around from the banjo to the balalaika and stuff, play a few notes. So yeah, that's... You know,
I was going to go, it kind of brings me on to it in a way. So talking about theatre work, there's quite a few of you that have done kind of theatre work. How did you get into it, and has that been a really rewarding part of your career to do? Yeah, Russell, have you done?
Yeah. So when I play electric guitar as well. And so that was another kind of, and then people would just ask for when they couldn't do it or to step in. So there was different. So
scary work though, isn't it? It can be really scary.
I mean, there's different. I mean, it's quite again. I mean, it's the different. West Side Story, and that nearly killed me. That I really had to practice. That was like,
that's the wrong character though, isn't it?
that was really. I wanted the dry Russian opera, no, the Kurt Weill. Threat Me Up, and that was they had to play banjo. And
did you know how to play banjo before?
No.
Did you say yes and then go oh?
The guy that called me, so I know. He said, "Well, Cooper, you need to play, but you'll need to play banjo and steel guitar." I said, "Well, I don't play banjo." He said, "So I just buy a cheap one and get the cheap the 6-string banjo, the guitar banjo." So I bought myself so that was no problem. The steel guitar was the problem there. But he said, "Okay, well, I've got one, so just use mine," and I thought, so I really had to practice that. And then again, it was like it's always like tight schedule with the orchestras, with the orchestra and work at the theatre. So it's like kind of, I could do it at the last show. And the last show, I was really to bore, but that was the first time.
Can we do more? Oh no, that's it.
Steel slide solo was perfect. I thought that was the last show. But yeah, so it's just doing different.
But it's a very different discipline, isn't it, as well? And also, I think the musicians that you play with are a different breed, you know, almost. Their training is different. That their expectation of the music being shoved in front of them night after night, always new, and that I'm sure they have that level of kind of anxiety as well, but they're so used to it, you know.
Completely. I mean, again, a lot of it is not to make it up, but it is then a job. You know, so you're doing it as a job, but then there are certain things that then are special. You know, it's like kind of. And I did one with I think it was Mahler 10th Symphony, and there's a guitar part in that, but it's only like
for a brief
3 bars somewhere like in the last. And it was for the ballet director of the theatre, and it was his retirement, and it was like his present. He wrote Elmer Minor 0, it was called. So it was so he wrote a ballet to this music, and so they said, okay, you can have an 80-piece orchestra. So it was like kind of okay. So it was like amazing. So it was just I was sat and I didn't really know much about ballet. I've got to be a bit of ignorant to ballet. So I loved it. So they put the orchestra on the stage then as well. So it was the back. So I was just watching the ballet first time. So I was really close watching the back. And then I loved it, but it was like kind of okay. Now you've got to get for your 3 notes.
Yes.
And then
it's a shame if you're watching it and miss it.
Watch the ballet again. So it was, but those are not. I like those jobs.
Yeah. Anyone else kind of theatre work, different theatre things? At least you did play with the RBC, so how did that come about and what was that work? You did some recordings as well recently?
Yeah, so first of all, I got asked if I would go straight onto a show. It was called City Madam, and it was for guitar duo, and then there was percussion, there was double bass and clarinet. And so the composers, they composed the work specifically for that show, and you're learning it on a tech rehearsal. So you'll be playing it and then they'll be like, it's really difficult bit, and they're like, no, it's cut, the scene's cut, or you know, it's kind of thing. Then Nick Lee, who was, he's the resident guitarist there, I started to dep for him. So then you would then go and sit in on a show. That was scary because you don't get the tech rehearsals. So you've got these recordings, you've got the music, but because you're actually interacting with the actors, it's not, so sometimes it can be like grade 1 standard level playing, but it's actually what you're having to do, the cues when you come in.
There's lots to think about, you know. As well.
Well, timing and stuff. It's all.
And the best one was when I had to do. It was in the main theatre, and I was on stage for As You Like It. I was sat on like a barrel, and then the actors were sort of talking to me, and I was having to play. It was like a kind of folk vibe.
Stop talking, I'm playing. Can you not?
And there were so many different instruments I had to pick up. The flautist at one point said, "Is it the wrong instrument?" I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then I got the longest amount of time sort of playing for them was for Wendy and Peter Pan, where that was my own show. There was about, I think it was 4 or 5 different instruments. Now I am very much a classical musician, and so I had to buy an electric guitar for that. I got Nick to do the soundboard for me. I bought this soundboard, I was like, I've got no idea how to use this, he programmed it, and it's just learning on the job, but it's excellent. And working with different musical directors as well. Bruce O'Neill, I think he actually trained here at the Conservatoire, but it's just an amazing experience, and yeah, I'd recommend it to anyone. Really.
Do you think that made you better musicians, kind of being involved with that sort of thing? I mean, you've both done, Jamie, you're doing actor muso now. I mean, do you think it's enhanced your musical career because of doing that kind of work as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my theatre work's a little bit different to the usual stuff. I've done a few pit jobs, you know, reading score and stuff, but the last 3 shows I've done, I wrote the music as well. And it was very much a devised process. So we did, and this was with a theatre company called Red Earth Theatre, and they who are unfortunately folding this year after 20 years of I've really put the nail in their coffin or something. But yeah, they specialise.
Charge too much.
They specialised in theatre that's accessible for the deaf community. So the idea was that they brought us on board as my trio threaded originally, and we did a show called Soon Child with them, based on a book. And during rehearsals, there wasn't a script, and there wasn't obviously a score, and we devised the whole show as we went. And we were very much part of the action on stage, because that's more accessible for the deaf community to see what's going on with the music as well as the acting. There's also sign language integrated, so I had to learn some sign language and things like that as well. And we had some like Arts Council funded projects to like develop our music for deaf audiences and things like that. So it's that kind of like you know, it's a bit of an anomaly in terms of like theatre work, because
but very creative. I mean,
you
know, I mean, you're kind of, that work is like from the ground up. You're really building everything. You're not coming in.
And I think it was cool because they, you know, from the directors were lovely, and the expectation of like how much music was going to be in the show was like, you know, we'll keep like expectation quite low, but we ended up like scoring the whole thing, like the whole soundtrack. So we had songs underpinning the shows, but we were like underscoring the whole thing all the way through, whilst acting and things as well. And this was like guitar, clarinet and fiddle. And then we did another show with them, which was called The Red Tree, and again based on a book. But due to like me having, because it was me and my wife and our friend doing these shows, due to like family and stuff, having kids and things, I was the only musician in that one on stage, but I wrote lots of the music with my wife. And that one we didn't, the first one we toured around the UK, the second one we just streamed, which was really interesting. And then we just done the third one, Make, Do, Amend, and that one wasn't even streamed, it was like pre-recorded. So again, different experience again of like trying to make it still feel like live theatre, but
so in a way, you were kind of forced into a creativity that you didn't really necessarily want to begin with, or you didn't know. You went into it blind almost, with the amount of stuff that you needed, skills that you needed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I've always wanted to do that kind of stuff, and always wanted to like write music for like film or theatre or anything and be on the stage and things as well. I'd love to be an actor in another life. I'd love to do films and things, maybe when I'm older. So I was like really excited but we were approached as like a folk trio to do it. So we were approached and commissioned rather than, we didn't. That was one of those lucky opportunities really, rather than putting the call out for it. We were surprised how much acting we ended up having to do and things. But it's like amazing extra skills.
Right.
You know, and sort of like directing music, doing the music direction for the actors as well, for them singing their parts and all that type of thing.
That's great.
And we did like an album of music for the first show and things as well, which we crowdfunded for.
So you're kind of having to learn, as I said, you're forced into learning other skills because of one seed in a way.
So we had our trio, which we only ever play original music for. It's like a folk trio, but it's not trad. We don't play any traditional stuff. We only write our own stuff, and I think it was off the back of that really. We sort of seen as composers all of a sudden, even though we just thought, well, we're just playing our tunes. But it's cool.
I thought Mark, sorry, were you
I was just going to say that interesting. We've had a few guitarists here who also become composers. Nathan and Paul.
Nathan's now associate composer at the Trinity.
So they've kind of gone into a full. I mean, those guys have done sort of almost formalised like composition, if you like. You know what I mean? And I was just interested to see anybody else had been involved in something which they've either had to compose or improvise or do things which have been much more kind of, rather than sort of, here's the music. I mean, I know, Gareth, you've probably had to write your own music as well, but I just wanted to see if anybody, and Will, you've done stuff with your quiet note, creating, kind of sound worlds really for, with your the sort of meditative and, stuff you're doing. So how's that worked?
Yeah, well, the way Quiet Note started was kind of because of COVID as well, which was with a total lack of performance opportunities. I started exploring the relationship of music and mindfulness, and one of those ways was actually thinking about how can music and sound in general benefit our health. So looking at certain frequencies, looking at certain sound worlds, as you said, and creating these tracks, which became the actual focus for the meditation, because more traditionally it's like a spoken voice or someone telling you a set of instructions or what to do during that meditation, whereas I said, well, actually, what if we could make sound the focus of it? And so that's what I did as my final project here, and sort of what we were saying earlier, it then had a bit of a snowball effect to then becoming my main career.
That's great. I'd like to go from there. And you're talking about your compositions for the deaf community and things. I'd like to kind of come on to kind of music in the community, and I know quite a few of you have been involved. Quite a few of you on live music now, but also other people doing educational work in a performance, not teaching, but in a performance way. Maybe someone who was on live music now, or are you currently on live music now, Georgina? Or
well, now you can stay on it for ages and like any age. So
do you want to tell? I mean, if people don't know what live music now is, do you want to give us a little bit of history, or hopefully you know about the of like what live music now is?
Well, it's basically an organisation which has I suppose, would you say, like a bank of musicians that they send out to places where music might not be so readily available, and to sort of help in community settings. And their main, so like care homes or special educational needs schools, or projects with mums and babies, or if the mums have been suffering with postnatal or prenatal depression. And the sort of the whole thing is about participatory music making. So you're performing, but you're also getting whoever's there involved. So I suppose, like in some cases, there is like a crossover with music therapy type things. Other people would you agree? So
You did that with a singer, or you're on it with a singer,
I'm on
or
it with a flautist.
with a flautist? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've done a variety of things with them, and like one of them, which I actually, because we sort of get split up and you kind of get to meet other musicians as well, which is also a really good thing about it. You then can collaborate with other people, and then that's how other things can snowball, because then they meet you, etc., etc. But Ellie, the flautist who I work with, was on a lullaby project which was really interesting, where you have sort of 8 weeks or so, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but you're then working with mums and their babies and writing lullabies for the babies. And so there's sort of a compositional element there. So there are loads of, you kind of learn a lot of different things through.
And again, you're kind of forced into that. Not that you would say you were a composer, but it's just like, oh, okay, I've been employed for this. I've got to then learn this skill, because of that.
Yeah, you're having to, in a way, do you find you're basically doing reactive music? So effectively, you're going into a situation. So in a way, you're having to improvise in order to serve the purposes of that moment. And
like if a child comes up and just wants to take your guitar or play your guitar whilst you're halfway through it, and you might not take your nice guitar, but I don't know, it's kind of learning how to react in those different situations and just letting, it's for them. I mean, all music is for the audience, but it is there's a lot of sort of like well-being being one of the things. So yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy it. It's a really nice. It's quite freeing actually, because what you were saying in terms of the notes and making sure that everything's perfect. I feel like obviously you're wanting to be playing to a good standard, but there's more to it than that. And yeah, so I found it quite a freeing experience. And you might have to just make something up on the spot.
Well, as I say, you have to change the program at last minute because that's not working, and so you've got to do something else. So like Mark says, a reactive. Even in performance, being a reactive musician,
I feel doing that is probably been one of that was for me personally, doing live music now was one of the things which really kind of made that how you're trying to communicate with audiences, whatever your audience is, that was a huge learning experience. I didn't know that until I had done something like that, where you just come in and thought, right, I have to rip up this program because that is just not going to work. I'm going to have to make stuff up here.
No, I mean, we literally went into a setting and thought that what we'd got planned was going to be great, and then it was just like, this isn't going to work at all. So let's just do something completely different. But I quite like planning. I'm like a planner, so it's really good.
Does that freed you up? Do you feel?
Yeah, well, I'm getting there. So, just trying to go with the flow of it,
Ideal thing from probably the transition from having been at the conservatoire and going out and doing concerts, because during my time of doing live music now, there were various projects where you would go on tour for a couple of weeks up in Yorkshire or over in Wales, and yes, you'd be doing an afternoon thing in a special needs school, then you would go to literally the middle of nowhere. You didn't have sat-nav necessarily that worked that well in those days either. Trying to find a church and doing a proper concert in the evening. There'd be this lovely contrast between workshop environments and then actually doing more formal concerts. I suppose there's still the music, rural churches, concerts and things.
Yes, there are different schemes, aren't there? There's live music now, but there's also like concerts in quiet places. There's our different rural touring schemes.
But actually getting those tours away where you'd actually just sort of have to be getting used to the idea of being away from home and actually having to sort of live out the suitcase a bit more is a skill in itself.
It's something that we've not even spoken about, the logistics of actually driving to a venue, all that kind of thing, and not to do with the actual performance. That's probably a whole I don't know whether they've got time for all that side of the story, but I'm sure we've all got stories of nightmare journeys or nightmare days on performance and all that, but we could go on and on, I think, with that sort of thing.
I've just got something to say about sort of the community music aspect, I guess. I do a lot of playing in hospital. I cover Royal Derby. I'm based in Derby now. I cover Royal Derby Hospital, Burton Hospital, Tamworth, Lichfield. So I can be in a couple of hospitals each week sometimes. And like that thing of being reactive is like the most important thing in what my job, what I do on awards and things. What I would normally do on a award is I've got my acoustic guitar, I've got no music, no stand, no anything, so I just float into a bay and sort of maybe I'm twinkling a little bit as I'm going in and reading the room straight away. And sort of depending on gauging reaction, play a few tunes or play a few songs, sing a few songs, maybe even ask I'd ask for requests all the time, and I'm quite open to people that I can pretend to play most things, but I can butcher any song that they want, sort of thing. And you sort of a bit of self-deprecating humbleness goes down well with most people. And
you've got to learn on the job, haven't you? You've got to totally learn on the job.
So they'll say country roads, and I'm singing country roads, even if I can't remember the words, and all that type of thing. But one thing that I've been doing the hospital music for like quite a few years now, probably something like 8 years or something, and one thing that stuck with me from being at conservatoire that's like really come back like into my forefront of my mind is a masterclass we did with Brian Jeffrey. I don't know if you remember this masterclass, and I think it's definitely speaking for myself, but speaking from probably most of the guitarists who played to Brian Jeffrey, found it really difficult to do what he was asking us to do, which was to smile and look at the audience.
Okay.
Because we always felt terribly awkward about it. He was like, look at us, smile, look at us and smile, and we were all like, like, you know, I don't want to look at the audience in the eye, I don't want to smile while I'm playing. And like every day when I'm at the hospital, like that is the most important. Like, I always think of Brian Jeffrey, because I'm like, I've got to look at like the patients, I've got to smile to them, I've got to put a smile on their face by making them feel at ease and smiling.
It's the ultimate engagement, really, in a way. It's incredible. And I like your fact that you talked about being humbling in the sense of, you know, you go and study for all this time, and then you think at the end of that, someone asks you to play Country Road or Daisy Daisy or something like that, and you just think, wow, this is what it's come to. But it's beautiful moments can happen in that time. We stay with you forever. You just think, wow. You know.
I've played, on people's deathbed. I've played, in some of people's like most extreme and worst moments. With their families and things. And it does stay with you, and it's hard, but it's a privilege.
Totally.
In those situations, that smile is probably as important as the music.
Oh yeah.
And it's what we're saying that your life here, in a way, while you're studying, is just the beginning, because you can't learn that sort of stuff. You can hear about it, and we can talk about engagement with the audience, and we do have some stagecraft kind of sessions, in their course. But of course, eventually you've got to get out and actually do it, and then you kind of see that reaction. I remember being a number of times on the panel of Live Music Now, and I remember a percussion ensemble that took forever to set up. There were about 6 or 7 of them, loads of instruments all on stage. They came out and their audition was literally 20 minutes of playing the most bizarre music you've ever heard in your life, and then packing away their instruments and going again. I mean, just like, they can't possibly be on Live Music Now. There was no even attempt to be engaging. They were into they were great musicians, no doubt about it. They could do their craft, but they couldn't do that thing of actually, and there was no way that we could put them on to Live Music Now, or something. Anyone else was on Live Music Now, or a similar kind of scheme to that? No, at all. I mean, so let's go on now to slightly different. Before we come on to kind of teaching, because obviously, we're most of us may be involved with teaching at some point in our careers. I thought we'd maybe talk a little bit about directing your own ensembles, or being involved with ensembles, not as a performer, which we've not touched on too much, but actually kind of directing your own ensemble. Does any of you, Adam, you do some directing of ensemble?
So generally kind of like a youth kind of level. So I work with the music service guitar ensemble, and also with kind of National Youth Guitar Ensemble on a kind of regional level as well. And I think that's just fantastic in terms of obviously historically guitar is seen perhaps a little bit as kind of like a solo instruments, and the fact of giving children and people the chance to kind of play alongside the learners as well, and also as well in terms of the skills they kind of develop in terms of teamwork, and for me as well in terms of any kind of ensemble and any kind of teaching experience. It's not just about the music education, it's kind of like the wider kind of social skills as well, and looking at those interactions. I don't know, many people even at Conservatoire today have been through kind of the Niger system, and also through maybe their local music service ensembles as well. And I think that's really rewarding. And in terms of as a teacher as well, kind of moving from being a Conservatoire graduate to then leading an ensemble is quite kind of like a big step as well, in terms of you're now actually, even today, kind of playing within the ensemble was actually a really nice way of switching that over. I do quite a lot of actually running the ensembles and stuff now, and being back as a learner actually is really interesting. Actually.
When we were rehearsing this morning, everyone was really quiet. I think, which I've never, I don't experience when I'm directing the students, an ensemble. Or I also work with the National Youth Guitar Ensemble, and you never experience that with kids. But then maybe because you've all been on the other side of it now, that you're all like, oh yeah, I know what it's like to stand in front of,
We had one really student in the ensemble.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, that's a given, really. But anyone else kind of to do with guitar ensembles? And I think one thing to say is certainly maybe for some of the older students as well. When me and Mark were first starting out, there were no ensembles.
No.
There was nothing. They're literally. There were duos, but they were all by Carcassi, or they weren't the modern composers that are writing now, and there certainly wasn't guitar ensembles. I don't remember.
Not in its kind of grassroots kind of educational sense. So I was going to say, what kind of is it? Do you feel a sort of big responsibility, because in the sense that the youngsters who are playing in that guitar ensemble, they're not necessarily going to become pro guitarists, but you want them to have a great time, enjoy music, learn about music, obviously, but that huge thing about enjoyment in the moment working together. Do you feel responsible?
I never measure success as a teacher or as an ensemble director on the number of children or young people that go on to conservatoire level. Obviously, some do that, and that's great, but it's very much for me kind of around the benefit that music education has had on them, whether they're going to do any type of career. Obviously, I've been a teacher for a while now, got to that stage whereby you might be down the street and actually some people you've taught before come and stop you and say, oh, I'm now doing this, I'm now doing that. And it's just kind of really great to hear, actually. I do kind of still remember, maybe playing at Symphony Hall when they were younger, and those type of experiences as well. And I think this kind of aligns with what Jamie was saying, actually, in terms of reading the room. And I think that's one of the big things to actually learn, actually, from the conservatoire, actually. You have to get very good in terms of being open to feedback, in terms of you taking feedback on, but also kind of giving feedback as well. I think that's a massive kind of transferable skill that you get as a conservatoire graduate, really. And as a teacher, like I said, being able to read the room and think, oh, they're not quite getting this, so I've got to adapt to what I'm doing. How do I get feedback from the young people? How do I have a conversation on which pieces they like, which ones they enjoy? I think all those people voice type things are really interesting.
And I think also we're really lucky with the repertoire that we've got now for ensembles. I mean, for those of you not guitarists, I mean, there's a huge amount of repertoire now being written for larger ensembles, and it's fantastic. And so that engages with kids. That's the important thing as well, isn't it? With that,
it's the nature of the guitar, but we sit on our own. Far too much. And it's one of those.
Well, now you've got your best buddies next to you now, haven't you? Adam and Gareth.
It's one of those opportunities. Guitar ensemble has been good. That's going back now. How long is that? Early 90s. The Birmingham Schools Guitar Ensemble.
Is that when it goes? Is that when it was started?
When it was going when I.
Okay. Oh, well, that was great. That it was.
They were on the forefront, really.
I didn't know.
And it was Brian Lester that was doing it. And fantastic man. It was just great. It was great to be with people. It was great to meet other, not just always sitting on your own. And that is so important. And for younger people, good for orchestral instruments. They have to. It's normal. It's but for us, it's not always, and I find it's definitely important. What you said about it doesn't, whether they'll go on and study or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's important for kids, and when they learn as well. They're also concert audiences of the future. They're the people that will go to concerts and watch them now, and it's to learn about it, appreciate what that whole classical music or live music or whatever you want to call it. It is really important.
Just to sorry, Mark.
No, go ahead.
Just to support what my friend from Birmingham Music Service was saying. I directed a guitar ensemble with Solihull called Strumtastic. And it really was the most satisfying part of my teaching career. And as you say, it's not just about the music, it's the benefit that you're bringing effectively to their lives and how much they learn about how to get on with other people. And all of that is what makes it so satisfying, I think.
I mean, you can see that in the system. I mean, like the Venezuelan system, the El Sistema, you know, this whole sort of pyramid growing scheme of getting youngsters from the streets basically, and sort of giving them, you know, that involvement in music and building them up. And, you know, it doesn't really matter how good or bad you are or whatever you are, but you're involved in that system, and you know, you work together. It's a huge impact on their lives. You know, it's such a positive impact.
As a professional guitarist, you get so many more skills from the ensemble that you don't get from just the solo playing as well. Because when I joined conservatoire, I'd never been part of any ensemble, and so my sight reading, you could probably remember, Mark, was quite shocking.
No, I can't remember that well.
But also just actually being able to play with other instruments was something I'd never done before, and so I was playing massive catch-up for the first couple of years, and then by the end of it, you just get to a point where your brain clicks into that gear and you can sight read quickly, you can understand, and it massively enhances your listening skills, because you're not just listening to your playing, you have to be like guitar, you know, 2 out of 8, and you're listening to all the different parts and how it works. So you've got those sort of non-musical skills which are really important, but also it has a massive impact on your solo performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that Andrew, you direct an adults. Well, is it adults or just it can be anyone? Or?
No, I mean, what I was going to say was, but first of all, was that the advantage of doing music is it's for any age, and therefore, when you're teaching, I do anything from, I've got like 6-year-olds up to, I don't know, 86 probably, year olds doing music, and the various ensembles that I run, having the skill to be able to sort of work out the repertoire that suits all of those different ages, but also their skill level, grade levels is vital. The adult ensemble that I run is for local sort of amateur enthusiasts of the guitar. Unfortunately, it's been growing sort of brilliantly over the last few years, because we have a base of sort of about 14 members that are with us pretty much every other week when we rehearse. And that sort of enjoyment that you see from the different ages coming to play the guitar together is really, really good. The other thing that I would say about ensemble playing, I think I probably retain more students because they want to be part of my ensemble.
Yeah, interesting.
So from the private teaching perspective within a school, I think possibly some of the boys that I would have taught before at King Edward's would have probably stopped earlier had it not been for the ensemble. I think they would have sort of thought, oh, I'm struggling with my grade 3, I don't know whether it's worthwhile bothering. But you keep it interesting by doing the ensemble, and then all of a sudden they're on to grade 5. You know, it's sort of, I think there's a reason behind playing together that we sometimes overlook.
Absolutely.
I mean, it brings us on to, you know, what festivals are doing next with, like, you know, the festivals have kicked in with that whole ensemble and the educational side of that. And I know you do Westdean, and you know, we've been on a number of festivals which have, like, you know, a big part of it is just ensemble playing, and it's such a wonderful outlet for, as you say, all guitarists to kind of go on. And I was just wondering, is that something that happens in Koblenz as well, and stuff in Germany? How much ensemble playing has gone in festivals there?
Yeah, I go for in Koblenz. There's like junior academy.
Okay, right.
And that's like for kids, but from young and
Really
young.
young.
So it's like 6 years old, like to 18, 19. No, and over the last weekend of the festival, they have done like a whole weekend where they come and they rehearse and have rehearsals, go to the concerts, watch a bit of the competition. Some of them have master classes, and it's and then they play. Then the last evening concert after the competition and stuff, they always play
as an ensemble.
As an ensemble for these, and it's great. And it's also, again, you see they love it, and again having 7 years old and having master classes with whoever, you know, professor, whatever, and play. It's an amazing experience to be part of all that. So it's definitely
That's great. So from there, let's go on to kind of teaching, because you know, obviously it's an important part of most of our lives. first of all, let's go like top down, not top down, but let's think of more managerial kind of positions. I know that Adam, you're saying you're deputy head of service, which is great. Dan, you're head of music in a secondary school, or
Director of Performing Arts.
Director of Performing Arts. Okay, is this a big secondary school or?
It's 1,800.
Whoa. Okay. So I would say it's a big secondary school.
I mean, you must have to do. I mean, that's a big, to cover all aspects of music, and if it's performing arts as well, I'm presuming it's like acting and
so
maybe even dance or something.
Performing arts, drama, and then there's a dance course that runs as well.
Oh, wow.
And we've got music at GCSE and BTEC at GCSE and then A-level as well. But it's just quite interesting because every single thing we've talked about so far is part of a teaching job.
Yes.
So as a music teacher, it's my responsibility to teach composition, performance, appraisal. But then within that, you've got to run your extracurricular clubs. But at the same time, you're keeping the intake high, because if you don't get the intake, you're not going to run the courses.
Yes, exactly.
So actually, everything that we've talked about so far is kind of put into one job, really.
Yeah. Could you imagine that you were going to do that when you were here at all?
I loved my time here. Absolutely loved it. And I think being back today, I was saying to Matt and Jamie earlier, if I won the lottery, the first thing I'd do is I'd come and do a course again.
Oh, let's make sure we put that as a quote. We'll quote you on that.
Because it's funny, you're kicked into so many positions in schools that you'd never expect yourself to be in. I said earlier that the main reason I went on to BGC is because BCU, towards the time when we were thinking about what we're doing, and me and Matt were in the same year, I think you might have been with me when you were like, crap, we're finishing. Yeah. And BCU offered a very attractive package to go and study at BGCE, and then you kind of fall straight into it because you promised, at that time, when it was 2011, it was a 25 grand starting wage. And I thought, well, that's not a bad thing to go into.
Where can I sign?
But it kind of keeps you in there because you soon realise that everything you've learned here and working musicians. I did a lot of work with the vocal department when I was here at a company. And,
there was one particular interest, wasn't there? I seem to remember. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just had flashbacks to. Okay, sorry. Anyway, moving on.
It was it kind of leads you into using them skills straight away in teaching, and it's quite funny because I play a lot of acoustic guitar in school, but also a hell of a lot of classical knowledge as well, because you've got to flip between the BTEC courses and then the more kind of traditional GCSE and A-level courses. So I think it sort of ties in together, but more and more now I'm seeing that generation interested in taking A-level music again.
Yeah.
I think there's a dip
That's good to hear.
I think recently there's real uptake.
Brilliant.
And I wanted to come down for the open day at the train.
Right. Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. I'm in Cumbria, by the way, which is like the middle of nowhere. But we had about 7 students I was going to bring down for the open day that day before the train was cancelled.
Oh no.
But
But it's really interesting you're saying everything that we've been talking about has led into what the kind of job description almost of what you've ended up doing, in a way. Adam, what's your role and how does that, is it very different from Dan's role or,
I would say very similar really. So my role at the music service is around kind of like building links with schools really. So there's a whole movement of music education hubs around England. So in terms of my role, I kind of arrange CPD for kind of school-based teachers in Birmingham, and also for kind of like music service teachers as well. And I do kind of some kind of like guest talks at Conservatoire University around kind of like the idea of supporting kind of future teachers and encouraging students at Conservatoire or done music at other institutions in the region to kind of think about a career as a teacher really. And I'd massively agree with what Dan said in terms of like transferable skills. And obviously, as a conservatoire undergraduate or postgraduate, you kind of have to get used to kind of presenting on a daily basis in terms of your music skills and performing, and that kind of is quite similar to actually to teaching. You have to present on a daily basis to groups of learners, and you have to be able to read the room, and it is in some ways a little bit of a performance really. I always think you have to put a little bit of an act on as a teacher, in terms of how you're going to deliver that lesson, So yeah, I think there's massive overlaps really. One thing I would say to any conservatoire graduate, any institution is kind of the world really is your oyster really in terms of what you can do, and actually the skills you gain without you realising it would help you serve in a whole range of jobs.
Okay.
You know, whether that be in the business world, education world, performing world.
Yeah.
We're all selling something
Yeah.
in a way. You know, we might be selling ourselves, we might be selling our piece, we might be selling a piece of music or a concert or anything. So in a way, yes, you are having to sort of, you know, serve that
Pitch it.
Pitch it.
It's
Exactly.
engagement, isn't it really? Engagement is key
Engagement,
really. You've got to really engage with the stakeholders, whoever they may be.
Yeah. So in terms of other teaching, any kind of interesting kind of teaching jobs or things that private teaching you've set up, or you set it up as a business? Kind of anyone got any interesting kind of teaching setups really that they've got at the moment? Dan, you have.
It's really interesting because as much as I've said it's quite a good job, I'm stepping back from this kind of senior leadership role.
Well, you're going to Marbella. You just want, obviously it was quite stressful, and you want out.
Yeah, over the last few years, I wanted to see what it was like teaching privately quite a bit more. So I set up my own business called Eden Music, where I teach privately.
Hang on a minute. Eden Music?
The River Eden. Oh, okay. Personal village. I don't know about that.
See, I think there's a copyright issue here. Sorry, carry on.
I'll call it the Ashford Academy. It's been absolutely brilliant because I did spend a bit of time buying in self-employed musicians to teach the Perry services in school. I kept on looking at them going, I'm working a lot harder than you. And their job looked really fun. So I thought, I've gone down to 4 days now, but I've got a whole day working self-employed. But I reckon it's been the best decision I've made in my career.
Okay.
Because the relationships that I've built up with my students over that time have been absolutely fantastic. Even today, one of my students has lent me a Stephen Hill guitar to play today.
Right. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You've got good students then if they're playing Stephen Hill guitar.
What kind of students have you got?
Yeah. Cumbria, it's not in the middle of nowhere, is it?
But it's been great, and as I say, it's made me reflect a lot more on my time here. And that's why I said what I said earlier, about if I could, I would come back and study again, because I'm using all the skills that I gained when I was playing the guitar regularly on a day-to-day basis and playing to that high level that you are when you have the time to practice to that level.
Yes, excellent. Anyone else, any kind of interesting teaching things that they're doing, or?
I think as well, one thing to reflect on as well, I'd say probably everyone here as well would say what kind of like motivated us to kind of like take a degree in music. It'd probably be a really good kind of teacher, whether it be primary school, secondary or instrumental. And I think for me, I kind of really like the idea of kind of like working at kind of like the grassroots level, if you like, in terms of trying to get as many people as possible. So that's what Russell was saying, the people we work with at the moment will be the future concert goers in the future, and I kind of really enjoyed that idea of kind of just promoting enjoyment of music really.
Absolutely. Which kind of brings me on to, we're kind of nearing the end, and I want to make sure that there's a little bit of time if there are any questions from anyone to any of our guys here. Is this whole thing about, I said at the very beginning, this kind of portfolio career, which we've kind of touched upon, I think, most elements of what I wanted to talk about, but also kind of these transferable skills. And I want to come to someone who's been quite quiet on this panel, is Tim, sitting right here. I want to come on to Tim as someone who is not involved with music anymore, but I do know went to Cheetham School of Music. At what age were you when you?
16.
16. Okay, so you went as a sixth former just for a couple of years.
So you can see how bizarre it is because you've seen the outside world first before you go into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When did you go there?
I was 12.
Oh, you're one of them.
I mean,
institutionalised
through and through, absolutely. No, I was 12. So you were 16.
Yeah.
So you obviously. So what made you go to a specialist music school? Okay, have I opened a can of worms here?
Probably, yeah.
And then you went to study at music college for 4. You were here for 4 years, weren't you?
Yeah.
And then you just step back from it completely.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm feeling a bit self-conscious about it. Another one is because I've got notes. I'm not just the only person wearing shorts in the panel. It's also the entire room. I did get the memo about smart casual. I'm also a father, and I spent too much time. I've got a toddler who just has this aura of mayhem. And I've got everything for him in the car, and then I was like, where's my bag? As soon as I arrived in Birmingham, I was like, so anyway,
we've been there.
Yeah. So I think that I started the guitar when I was very young. No, not too young, perhaps 8 or 9. And I just seemed to pick it up really quickly. And it was one of those things that was identified with me in school, and people were like, oh, you know, that's it, he's got a talent there. Really, really go for it. And I remember sort of the audition at Cheatham's. I was thinking, I'm not going to get this. You know, you hear about the people that go to Cheatham's from an early age, people like Mark. And I remember getting it, thinking, maybe I'm on to something. But it was, no. What I mean, the sort of
the type of
no,
go. Go on.
Sort of very,
I can edit that out.
There's a bit of a cliche that it's incredibly talented people that go there. But no, there was some. Oh God, I'm really messing this up. But
maybe don't name people.
People socially awkward, like I'm being right now. So I'm talented. I went in for it, and then because that was it really was quite narrow in Cheatham's, and this is the sad part of it. It kind of, for me, it was one of those environments where it sort of took my enjoyment away from it a bit, because it was so regimented in how things had to be done. And to be honest, I've come here and I'm listening to the advice that you're getting from all of this panel, and it's the complete opposite from that. It's do it for your enjoyment. It doesn't matter if you can't do a trill in the Baroque style, you know, all this sort of stuff, and how well you drill that. It's ultimately
you remember that? That's good.
I remember that it was a thing. I don't remember it was the right thing. But and I think all of that weighed in on me. But another thing I've seen from people talking here is this adaptability to want to do new things. So there's 2 things I would say, trying to bring it back to the transferable skills. Tenacity, because sometimes when you working towards that final recital, you've got to get it right, and you will sometimes stick that, and you will just have to keep drilling. And to sort of loosely bring it back to what I'm doing now, sometimes if you're trying to get bug fixes in software development, you have to have that sort of same mindset. But you know, I say that every job's going to have that element to it. But it's really nice to hear actually the focus on doing other things, get into theatre, start working with ensembles, because I think I didn't have that earlier on with myself. But again, another thing that I wanted to stress was that, and I think I've seen this amongst everyone here, is that you will know, I knew at the time the sort of people that would go, I've said sort of people again, there you go, I have it. But the people that would go on to become successful musicians, because you could see that they were like, it doesn't matter what, I'm going to make a living doing this. And if this avenue doesn't work out, I'll find another avenue. And that's what I'm hearing here tonight. You'll find a way, you know, the water will flow in the direction. See where the opportunities come, and you can't plan for them in advance. I mean, for me, I sort of went off the rails, but I moved to Scandinavia for a bit and then worked in bars because I just did not know what I wanted to do. And then I did that. One thing you will notice, if anyone does fancy a career change, is if you've got a degree, it makes it easier to go on to do other forms of education because you can do a diploma for half the time. So I did psychology, which was one of those, I think it's another one of those subjects that people that don't know what they're doing do. Did that, but then to cut the story short, that then got me into neuroscience. Then I did the Open University because I realised I needed to start studying more mathematics, and I totally bombed my A-levels for mathematics in chat. So yeah, so look at where the avenues take you, and there are opportunities. And it's the adaptability thing. And I'm hearing that adaptability within music, but then as I did, adaptability to other things. And the fact is you've come here, you've clearly got the abilities to come here and make a success of that student life. So yeah.
That's great to hear your
tenacity and adaptability.
That's brilliant, yeah. And it's good to hear your perspective on it, listening to everyone else who is, you know, some people that are involved with it.
It's actually quite heartening to hear, because as I said, it sort of had that old feel of that very regimented, this is how you do classical music properly, and to hear, you know, especially those that have done other forms. I love that idea that you just get gigs and someone's like, yeah, can you play the balalaika? And you're like, yeah. Why this evening? Yeah. I love that.
I'll do it. But this brings me on to very nicely to kind of transferable skills. What skills have you learnt And actually, they've probably been on, they're quite self-explanatory, they've almost been on display, but that are not guitar skills. You know, what has been the kind of big, like, oh my goodness, I've had to learn these. I mean, for us, you know, when we started that, there was no internet, there was no multimedia, there was no, you know, so the big skills that we had to do, I don't think, I certainly at my school at Church, we didn't have computer science, or no, it was called IT. We didn't have IT lessons. So it was learning all that completely from scratch, not a Scooby-Doo. Everything was done in a little, I don't know, A was here and Z was here in the filing kind of thing, and that was it. So they were massive. That was a big, massive learning curve for me. You know, I don't know about you, Mark, you know,
well,
at that
yeah,
sort
I
of
mean,
time.
yeah, I mean, I'm still, you know, still very much trying to learn lots of things. You know, each place work, you know, different challenges.
And each generation has a new thing. I think the newest thing has been certainly media skills, has been video editing, which a lot of and audio editing, which obviously we had to almost learn during the COVID times, and we had to learn it quick. You know, you've got to put out a concert. You know,
been inspired by lots of the students, because I mean, you know, with social media and people having Instagram accounts, Facebook. I mean, you know, when in lockdown, you know, people were videoing their own performances, often in their own, you know, bed sits, rooms, whatever, and making things look absolutely, truly amazing. You know? And I was sort of going, wow, this is how did you do this? And they're just going, I just got my phone there and, you know, did it this angle and had the lighting. This, I'm going like, wow, you knew about lighting, you know, it's great.
What other skills do you think you've kind of gained over the years? You know.
Well, it's interesting because when I started Quiet Note and working in a, you know, building a startup company, a few which come to mind is like the discipline which you need, where, you know, it doesn't matter what's going on, you've got to, you know, put the work in. That's exactly the same as what you have at music college. Coming up to your even if you're, you know, bored of your pieces that you've been playing for literally, you've still got to do the practice and you've got to do the technique work. So the discipline idea and actually moving away from relying on motivation but actually thinking more about discipline is hugely important. But then, you know, what we've been talking about, you know, when like networking, being able to talk to people. You know, when I started Quiet Note, I did a huge amount of networking, which at first was quite awkward because I was going from a very much an artistic background into a business space. But at the end of the day, people are just people, and you walk in. It's the conversation is slightly different, but it's still trying to get on with them, and, you know, then arrange coffees and then build that relationship so that you're not looking for immediate work, but like 3 months later down the line, they become a client, and they're like, oh, I remember you're the wellbeing guy, aren't you? Could you come into my office and do some work with me? And it's like, yeah, that'd be great. And it's just building that relationship with them. And then time management is like, you know, it's a massive part of being a freelance musician is managing your time, because if you're late for a rehearsal, if you don't get back in touch with people, you're just not going to get booked again.
Are you listening to this?
And it's like, but it's exactly the same like within business and within the startup culture. If you can't manage your time, then you're not going to get any work.
Any other big kind of learning curve?
Patience has been the big one.
Patience.
Patience,
If you're going to go into teaching, there's no point in shouting at little Johnny because he hasn't done his practice that week. It just doesn't work.
Did you shout at little Johnny the first time?
That's how I found out it didn't work.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's all part of life's rich experience, and, you know, you find other ways to get around that. But learning patience was a really big thing for me. And it's benefited me personally as well, hugely.
Being a motivator, because you two are very motivational. The opportunities that you have given to us, you know, the students, there's many things that have arisen. My work with National Youth Guitar Ensemble, that was through World Youth Guitar Festival, then being recommended to Chris in the audience, taken over from that. And like Adam, you work with Mark, don't you, with National Youth Guitar Ensemble? So, but when you're teaching, you need to be the motivator, because why aren't they practicing? It's because they're not motivated, and it's your job to find out why. We're the problem, not them. So you've got to find a way in. But it's incredibly rewarding as well when you do.
Yes.
And a transferable skill is I have a keen interest in running. I'm not that brilliant at it, but I'm actually going to be a run leader. So all these skills I've learned as a teacher, I've learned how to be a motivator. So then I can actually, in my local community, motivate, you know, my friends at the club. So, yeah.
I think I've had to learn quite a lot of extra skills since doing my degree. I think probably the most important one is public speaking.
Okay.
You know, I sometimes see that in in comparison to like my friends who aren't artists or musicians or anything, and you know, if it's their wedding or something and it's time for the groom's speech, and you realise, oh, most people aren't used to talking publicly and don't have that sort of confidence because it's scary. But like in terms of like gigging and stage banter and stage presence and all that.
And you all have that skill. Just this afternoon, you can just it's all on show.
And you might still be. I mean, I still get nerves from performing. There's no, but you know, I love that. I love feeling the fear, but doing it anyway. You know what I mean? Than just having that sort of, in a way, that dynamic. It makes it exciting.
Absolutely,
makes it engaging.
I think other skills I've had to learn, you know, like business, accountancy, admin, photography, Photoshop, web design, marketing. You know, how to record, mix, master, and distribute an album. Oh.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's funny because that almost brings the students down. Did you all have to do major projects? Do you all remember the major? So that goes back a long time, the major project thing. I think it's become much more of a thing now than it was. I don't know what date that goes back to, but now the students can put 60 credits on their major project and 40 credits on their final recital. So they can weight it so that they can. I don't know how long that's been going. I'm not really sure, but. They therefore can, those skills that you're talking about, the student this year had to do not video editing but kind of produce their own videos and that sort of thing, and so you're having to think of what those out of the box kind of skills are, as well as just kind of performing, you know, and those and that can really kind of highlight those different skills, you know, which is great.
There's just so much in the music industry, isn't there? Like so many like things that you just don't know about, and could go on for hours about it.
Yeah.
Like,
and you can get up and do it yourself, most of it as well,
yeah,
and you have to.
But you don't know where to look at first.
No,
you know, applying
no.
for licenses or registering with PRS.
Yes, all that kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Just doing a tax return or registering yourself as self-employed, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like it's a lot. You know, if you're going to be like self-employed.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But you know, it's transferable. You know, I've always done my own band photo shoots and things like that. And then, you know, I've got a friend who's an actor and needs some headshots. Oh, do some headshots for you because all of a sudden now I'm a photographer. Yeah. You know.
Before we finish, or before we go to, if there are any questions from the audience, I wondered if we could kind of go around the room and just, you know, ask what, to date, the most rewarding part of your career has been. You know, can be anything at all. I maybe should have said this before, giving you a little bit of you know, I don't know, I feel a bit bad going straight to Russell, but maybe, you know, who could say what the most rewarding part of their career has been?
Performing with young people is brilliant.
Performing with young people?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone?
Just noticing the benefit that music brings to other people.
Okay, that's been a rewarding part. Yeah.
Does it have to be one specific?
No. Okay, well it depends. We've got, you know. Go on, Russell.
Doing what you love.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's good. That's the world we live in. You know, you've got to then. It's all right doing what you love, but you have to earn some money as well.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way the world is. You know, it's like kind of. But that just doing. For me, it's doing what I love and working, whether it's teaching or performing or whatever. But it's doing that.
Great. Anyone else?
I think seeing the progress of students over a long period of time. I've coming up next month, one of my students who I've been teaching since he was 8 years old is doing his ABRSM diploma, and I'm doing a couple of pieces, including El Polifmo de Oro, which I did my first year with you, Mark. And it's just amazing to see and to remember back to learning it and see some of your exasperated notes on my old score. I don't know
how my notes were exasperated.
So that's that kind of thing is really exciting, and seeing students perform.
Yeah.
Is amazing.
Anyone else?
I'd massively agree with what Russell was saying, and I'm only 2 years into my career, so it's like still super early days for me. But building Quiet Note up until this point, we're now winning awards each month. We're growing in strength, and we're having that sort of community and corporate impact. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Great. Fun is probably the main thing.
Totally.
Because as you said, you wouldn't necessarily do music as a career path if it was just to do with money.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
You have to do it. It's
But
Yes.
sort of you just take the opportunities as they arise. Teaching, you learn how to be a better performer because you have to work out how to explain the same thing, with the same grade piece you taught 10 times that week, but you have to change the angle of attack with each individual student, and then you can put that into action for your own sort of skill learning, for your own technique as well. You actually have to work out, how did I do that? How do I actually do it to make it better to teach? But I think just keep working at sort of trying to get towards your goals. I mean, when I went to guitar festivals as a student, I didn't necessarily think I'd end up sort of running one of the biggest ones in the country, but the opportunities just arise, and it's just a case of grabbing them when they come and just keep plugging away. That's really all.
Passing on the passion to people.
Yeah.
Seeing them, however they use it, igniting that passion, you're responsible for it. And then, like little 7-year-olds and their 18-year-olds going up, or adults, or be it an audience member coming to speak to you afterwards to say how much you move them. It's just doing what you do, and then we're very lucky.
I think
Just go. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You can go first.
No.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I like the variety.
The variety. Okay, that's interesting. The portfolio kind of
Because I
thing.
I did the 9 to 5, and it didn't suit me because I like the fact that you could be teaching 1 minute and then you've got a performance the next day, or working in a school doing something different, and then all of the different people you work along the way, and that you might sort of collaborate with them doing something that you might not have expected. So that for me is probably, particularly from how I felt before, it's sort of exciting moving forward.
But it's very interesting your path, because obviously you dabbled in that. You went to your 9 to 5 and just went, okay, this is not for me. Can't.
Do you think it was good that you did that, even in order to say that's not for me? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was good, and I learned lots doing it.
Yes, of course.
But yes, I think it was, because now, sometimes you can go, oh my goodness, I've got so much to do, or there's all of this, and how can I be this person, and this person, and this person in this day doing a variety of things? But actually, I would much rather be doing that than how I was feeling before.
Well, you're right. Sometimes it can be all-consuming and overwhelming. It's just like, I've got this, I'm spinning so many plates, and just like, what on earth? How on earth am I going to? But you can, and that's definitely a transferable skill, isn't it? Being able to do that, So.
I'll say one thing as well about confidence, because I still remember I always came into everything with a lack of confidence and feeling as if I wasn't capable, and that's how I felt when I went to Cheatham's as well. Because oh my God, what am I doing here? Seriously, what am I doing here? And when I changed career, I remember always sort of feeling as if I was on the back foot, because I was up against people who've been doing this since their early 20s when I transitioned into my 30s. And I still remember one time when I was a self-employed contractor for a while, and they'd asked for a problem they couldn't solve. Maybe it's a bit more like forecasting sales in a variety of different stores. And I came up with this one, and I was like, I think this way is going to solve it. Hierarchical clustering, if anyone's interested. So I was using this, and they were like, oh, I'm not too sure that's going to work. And I was like, okay, well, they said, okay, well, everyone, you do your forecast, and we'll send them off to the store managers. And mine was the first. They come back and gone, yes, this is actually on the point. And I thought, do you know what, I am qualified enough. And the very fact that you're here, you've got into a music establishment, whatever you want to do in this, it can feel like one of those areas. I mean, as I say, I know I've left it, but people here have been talking about it can be intimidating. You have to be humble, but you are good enough. The very fact that you've got to this level, have that confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any questions from our audience before we kind of wrap this up at all? Anyone got any questions? No. Have we covered everything? Everything possible ever in the world? Well, it just brings me then, we're almost kind of 3 o'clock. I think we've kind of covered everything. I'm exhausted anyway.
Yeah.
You're probably exhausted too. But thank you guys so much for being a part of this. We do have a performance. These guys are all going to be performing in about an hour's time. So they'll have just a lie down in a darkened room. And then they will be performing at 4 o'clock. So you'll hear them kind of live as well. It's been a huge pleasure to have you all here. Thank you so much for coming back and taking part in this. Great to hear your stories, and let's do this again sometime. So well done. Thank you.